Hello, hello, hello.
Greetings, friends.
Hi.
We skipped last week, but we are back with a vengeance.
No, I'm not.
We can
Wrong
rebuild
thing.
them. They have rebuilt us harder, faster, stronger.
The faster and the stronger is Nick.
Yes,
I
Nick
guess.
is both faster and stronger.
And while Jameson might not be here today, he is here in spirit with my Slurpee.
Yes.
So you're drinking his
This is
spirit. I get it. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Make you strong.
I liquefied Jameson and then I froze him into
yes.
little pieces, and then
Many,
I put them in a blender so that it was an icy.
many tribes believe that if you consume your enemy, that you gain their power. So that is what Alex is doing right now.
The red is not in fact Fago Red Pop Slurpee. It is blood.
Yes, it is. But we have a new guest, a new person here.
His name is
That's
Nick,
me.
but
I'm
he
not
can tell you
Jameson.
more.
So,
But,
but I'm here filling in for him, at least for while he's in spirit in Slurpee. But
Slurpee form.
yes.
Yes. Introduce yourself.
I'll be Nick, as I said. I've been playing Magic, not quite as long as these two veterans here, only since Zendikar. So, but I've been buying cards since before that. I'm kind of a buy Yu-Gi-Oh, buy Pokemon, buy Magic cards kind of kid. And then I had a bunch of cards and not a deck until I met some people who played, and then I was like, oh, I should build a deck. So I just found, some cards I had, which were pretty much some cats and some hounds, and I had levitates. I had a playset of levitates. And so I was like, oh, this would be cool. I have these cats and dogs that fly. So I rained flying cats and dogs upon my enemies. And it was an awful, terrible deck.
That
But,
is so unique. Like that is the
yes.
most unique deck I could possibly think of. Not gonna lie.
And, but I found out that one, it sucked. And two, I don't really like the 60 card format. And so the group of friends I played with were like, well, dude, there's this other format called EDH, or Commander now, but it was EDH back then. And I was like, okay, this sounds way cooler. I get 100 cards, it's a multiplayer format. After we started playing, I was borrowing people's decks. I was like, okay, I can do this one on my own. And I still kept with the cat theme, but I did mono white, basically Puss in Boots, but not with cards, like all the crappy cards. So, but it still turned out pretty good. My commander was Jareth the Leonin Titan. He's a
He's
big,
cool.
big cat. Yeah, I liked him because he reminds me of the Labyrinth and the Babe. You know,
Yes. And the babe.
and the Babe with the power. But yeah, I've got so that's like 6 years, I guess, experience. I guess I'm more of a kind of casual player, if you can call anyone who plays Magic a casual Magic player.
He can.
Yeah, you can.
Especially because I don't think I've really followed this last set with the dragons and whatnot.
It's a good set. I promise.
It is.
Yeah,
I mean, if you don't like dragons, then it's less good. But there's other good stuff in there too.
yeah.
Yeah.
But who doesn't like dragons? Am I right? Apparently, Nick.
No, I like
Okay.
dragons. I'm trying to think of someone who doesn't like dragons, but
Mm.
not very
Well,
many people.
Another development since last time we had our podcast 2 weeks ago. John got a working camera situation.
Yes, we get to
I
see his
mean,
beautiful face.
I mean, we don't know
at
if it'll
least
be permanent. Like at least
at
this
least
week
this
it's
week.
working.
At least this week. Yeah. I know, right? So yeah, bask in this glory, my friends.
You will get to see his face move when he talks.
I know. I
I'm
will
sorry to say that he is not the world's greatest ventriloquist.
yeah, I know. I'm working on it for you guys, though. I do. For you, audience.
All right.
Okay.
So
Let's get going, shall we?
yes. So the topic for discussion this week is basic utility that pretty much every deck should probably have, and that's literally every deck, and also for Commander, of course. Literally every deck, and also the idea that green decks should try to have this, blue decks should try to have this, etc., etc.
And I mean, I was talking to Alex about this. It's kind of a difficult topic because, like, depending on your deck, like it changes what you want. So, I mean, we're gonna try to focus on just general utility, but I mean, it'll overlap. Some cards, I mean, it'll just be that are good in some decks and some aren't in others.
Yeah. And there's just as a general rule. I mean, there's going to be some commanders that's going to be like, well, don't you want to play this card that every other deck of that color is playing? No, it makes my deck not work.
Right, exactly. So. Exactly. It's like, I don't think I want Ruined Reflection in my Erebos deck because that's not good. That hurts.
Bad.
Yeah. 4 life to draw a card is not good. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, I guess we can just kind of jump right in.
Yeah. I think safe to say that obviously the things that perhaps every deck would want to run would have to be colorless. So that's various artifacts and also lands. And
lands are important.
The first thing right off I mean, obviously, oh no, guys, the utility you want is you want some lands. No, specific lands. Reliquary Tower, I think, is
always great to have.
Insanely useful. And a lot of times when I tell people, like, they'll come into work and they'll be like, hey, I have this commander deck. They'll be like, help me make it better. And and I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, I don't see a Reliquary Tower. You want a Reliquary Tower? They're like, but I don't even have any cards that draw things. And I'm like, yeah, but your opponents do.
Right. Exactly. It's really true. And the best way to counteract that Nekusar Waste Not deck is to have a Reliquary Tower.
Yeah. Super good card to have.
That is very good. I mean, if you're running monocolor, I would argue Nykthos might be just a solid choice.
Yep, Nykthos is.
Yeah, Nykthos.
In monocolor decks, Nykthos is typically awesome. Blue, perhaps less so, if you're going for like that super instant sorcery heavy control-ish sort of blue. But like if you're playing a large amount of permanents at all, then
I mean like a zombie decks. Zombie decks love Nykthos.
Yes.
Because sure, the wizards may have 1 or 2 blue, but you have 40 of them. So that helps.
Zombie Lady of Scrolls. She tap an untapped wizard you control to draw a card. And she has triple blue in her casting costs, so I mean she works with Nykthos pretty well on her own.
Another really good land though, Winding Canyon. I don't know if you guys know that one.
Winding Canyon is a card that is criminally underplayed in Commander.
Yeah. It's just a land, taps for 1 colorless, but if you pay 2, tap it until end of turn. Creature spells you control have flash, basically. So basically, you pay 2, you can play any creature with flash this turn.
And it's John Avon art. Why wouldn't you want it?
Exactly. Well,
obvious.
Because you gotta have an entire John Avon deck.
Hey, don't steal the wind out of my sails. I've been working on this for a while. It'll be on the podcast when it's ready, damn it. There's a lot of cards to go through to make that deck. And none of them are functional together. Except for lands.
Oh, Lord.
I might play Canal Dredger in that deck. That's how awkward the selection of cards are.
Well then.
I just need dudes.
Right.
Bodies to
Oh
block.
man. Oh man. Um. So I mean, as far as like specific lands for certain decks, I mean, if you're running black, or if your deck is just black heavy, um, Cabal Coffers is just
Hmm.
a way to get an irresponsible amount of mana into your mana pool is Cabal Coffers.
Yeah,
Like,
and that paired with Urborg is
yeah,
amazing.
I was gonna say, like, even if you're a multicolored deck but you run Urborg in there, I would argue that, like, unless you're super tight on mana, throwing a Cabal Coffers in couldn't hurt.
Right. Like, I think most 3-color decks that have black in them can afford Cabal Coffers Urborg.
Right.
Where, for example, my Super Friends, that doesn't want Cabal Coffers, because, I mean, it's pretty dead if I don't have that Urborg.
Yeah. Exactly.
Especially you run what, like 2 basic lands of each color?
Not even. I have
Like-
1 plains, 1 island, 1 swamp, 1 forest.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got Shocklands, but they only go so far.
Buried Ruin's pretty good for artifact decks. It's a cheap
Yes.
uncommon. Get a
Yep.
retrieve one from your graveyard.
Hmm.
That's a good one as far as lands go.
So, but
I mean-
but like the idea of Buried Ruin is that the utility that it provides is recursion. You want some
Yes.
form. A huge issue in Commander is, one of the things that makes me love the format can also be a big problem with it, and that is that everything, well, just about everything has to be a singleton. So that makes consistency and redundancy pretty difficult without forcing it. And Buried Ruin is one way that you could put into any deck to, as far as artifacts go, create redundancy. Green has a ton of options to redundancy. They've got Eternal Witness, Den Protector, Reclaim, like...
Ewit.
Yep, yeah, I said that.
Okay.
Like a billion other cards.
Right. And I mean, and that helps for sure. Speaking of graveyards, I guess the next thing that I would argue that a lot of decks need, because a lot of these are also colorless, is things to mess with graveyard. Just a little bit of graveyard
Just
hate.
something, yeah.
Because, I mean, people like to do crazy stuff with their graveyard. And Commander makes that really easy to do stuff with your graveyard. And being
And
able to...
Just a slower pace, yeah.
Yeah, even if they're not doing like stupid powerful graveyard interactions as their deck, like for example, your Sidisi deck, John. Like, even if they're not like that, like, if I'm playing Super Friends, which has basically no graveyard interaction, and I go, oh man, I need that Damnation back from my graveyard, cast this Eternal Witness, target Damnation. Okay, response, exile your graveyard. Well, then I'm pretty sad, and I'm probably going to lose.
Right. And, I mean, it's just some solid stuff. And there's a lot of cards, like, I mean, you have your Tormod's Crypt, you have Relic of Progenitus.
I love
if you're
Relic of Progenitus.
If you're running black, I would argue that you should totally be playing Withered Wretch, because Withered Wretch is a really good card. And it's another one of those cards that isn't played a lot, and I feel like it should be played more. I love it. I'm sure Alex is pulling it up right now.
Yep, I just pulled it up. It's a zombie cleric for double black. It's a 2/2. You can pay a 1, remove target card in a graveyard from the game. So it can fulfill your graveyard interaction essential requirement, basically, is what these are. Some of these things are. While simultaneously not giving up a creature slot, which for a lot of decks is really important.
It is. I mean, I run it in my vampire deck, and my vampire deck is actually really creature light. Like, I honestly think there's only like maybe 30 creatures in that deck.
Right.
And so
For
like
vampires, that's super light. Yeah.
so being able to being able to give myself a little bit more graveyard interaction without having to give up a creature slot was super important for that deck.
hmm And then, of course, playing if you're playing green, well, then the obvious, like you could be playing green black, but even then, the obvious answer to, you know, you probably wouldn't be playing Withered Wretch. You'd be playing Scavenging Ooze.
If you have black, green and black, you got that Deathrite Shaman.
Yep, Deathrite Shaman. Also, if you
But we
don't
only want
want
good
to,
cards. But we only want to use good cards, so whatever. Probably not that Deathrite Shaman. We only want good cards.
one of these things is banned in Modern. One of them's not.
Anyway,
But Bajukabog is another one if you don't want to even take up a creature slot with basically just a bear.
right.
It's a land that'll exile. But likewise, just as a lot of people probably want to be dealing with problems in graveyards, you kind of want to be able to protect your own graveyard. One, because these games can go really long. They can. And, hours and hours. And
Yes.
sometimes your library just gets a little low, and you might mill out. So
Exactly.
Elixir of Immortality is something that I think should be in also almost every commander deck. Now there's some that they'll have reasons to not play it, and those decks they can choose to not play it. That's fine. But Elixir of Immortality, it gains you life, so it keeps you alive. It shuffles your graveyard into your library, dealing with that redundancy thing. Also protects your graveyard because you can activate it at instant speed. And it makes it so that it's difficult to lose the mill.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I mean, like, even in my Sidisi deck, which is, basically like a weird Dredge/Reanimator thing, I run it in there simply because sometimes, the game goes late. And, like, either maybe I'll deck out, or maybe I just need to recycle some of my, like, non-creature stuff that's a little bit harder to get out of your graveyard. Being able to put it back into my deck. And also, it counteracts the graveyard hate that most assuredly comes my way when I play that deck every game. Because no doubt. Because worst case scenario, if I try to bring back everything and they're like, Tormod's Crypt, it's a lot easier for me to just mill everything again than to just lose it all.
Yeah.
So, lesser of two evils.
I'm gonna be right back because this is producing a lot of liquid, and I need paper towels. So.
Okay. I think Nick and I can handle it while you're gone.
We should be okay.
Yes.
All right, we're ready to take over.
Yes. I think another thing that's important is, like, card draw, I guess can be important for decks. And
I think card draw is key, honestly, in a lot of decks.
It really is. And in some colors it's a lot harder to do efficiently and effectively than others. It's definitely one of the reasons why red is probably the weakest color in Commander. It's because
you've only got looting. And there's
its card drawing is lacking, and it doesn't have as many ways to do it efficiently as really every other color. Even green has effective ways like Greater
Green has
Good,
fantastic
or
draw.
like Life's Finale, not Life's Finale. Oh crap! I can't remember the name of the card that's like sacrifice a creature and draw, like
Greater Good.
No, Greater Good, but
Life's Legacy.
Yeah. Life's Legacy.
That's
the one.
Legacy.
That's the one. And then there's the one from Rise of Eldrazi also that like gains life and draws a whole bunch of cards from sacrificing creature.
Momentous Fall.
Momentous Fall, right? And red doesn't really have any of those, so
nothing to draw really besides looting.
It kind of suffers, but in that regard, you can use the colorless options. So you have
Howling Mine.
You have Howling Mine. You have Font of Mythos. Granted,
Browbeat.
Red does have Browbeat.
But who's gonna let you draw the cards?
Someone. I don't know.
Well,
then again, no, I take it back. Browbeat, they would all have to let me draw the cards. Someone's gonna pay 5 life.
The only way you don't is, I guess, if you are already at a point where they can't afford it, In which case, you probably don't need to draw cards anyway.
To actually kill them, sure.
Right. I guess maybe, but like, if you're at a point where you're in like, there's 4 other people and none of them like are either willing or can afford to pay 5 life, 6 life, 6 life for you to not draw a card.
5. It's 5.
5 life for you to not draw a card. You might be winning. You might be, maybe, but who knows?
Maybe. Not me.
You could be. I guess there's an argument that life gain could be a thing that decks need, but in Commander, life gain isn't as insane as it is in 1v1.
Life gain, like, if you... Like, you can have... Most decks shouldn't be playing cards that just gain them life. It's fine if it fulfills some other purpose and, oh, cool, it gained me some life, too.
Bounce a card to your hand, get some life.
Well, like Momentous Fall gives you life, but it also draws you cards. So,
Yes.
in that regard, it does more than that.
You can do the life gain. You just gotta have that defense against commander damage, because that's the key.
Yeah, that's actually another thing that probably every deck should have is some sort of... Every deck needs an oh shit, I'm gonna die button. That could be in the form of board wipes, or some decks might just be super pillow fort, and I'm gonna play propaganda and ghostly prison and fear of safety and all this stuff, and you can't attack me and actually finish me off because I got my pillow fort built. Other decks, it could be lots of counters, but definitely some kind of oh shit scenario, and having a way to get out of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And board wipes are usually the easiest way to go about that, to have your emergency button. But in some cases that might not be it. Like some cases it might just be, I don't know.
Oh shit! I need an extra turn right now, because that's how I am. I'm like, I can.
That's what my Keranos deck does now. That's pretty much how it goes.
Your Keranos deck basically goes, I'm going to take 15 extra turns, draw maybe something useful, but I'm going to get a Keranos trick every turn, so I hope I can kill someone in that time.
Basically. Or at the very least, make them not a problem anymore. That's my plan. In my Una deck, it just pretty much is all just dirtily stuff, and then explodey buttons.
Yeah.
Like we were talking earlier about sometimes the game goes long, you need to rule for your graveyard. That's pretty much how that deck wins, is that it just goes on and on forever. It just survives. And I'll counter stuff occasionally, but I let everybody else do stuff. And then when it gets too crazy, I blow up the board. And then by the end of it, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do stuff now. Everybody's like, oh, wait, I don't have a thing for that because I spent the whole game doing stuff.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't actually have answers for any of your stuff anymore because it's turn 47. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. And then I can do whatever I want. So when people are just like, that's cool, Elixir, I get sad because I'm like, oh man, I have to deal with your stuff again.
And the game goes another 12 hours.
Sometimes.
Didn't we have like a freaking 7-hour game once at Delta?
We did.
It started at like 3 and then it ended at like 10.
Yeah, because I was playing Una. I think Paul was playing one of his blue decks. I think Nate was playing like Karavik or something. Like it's just, and then he dropped like Planar Chaos and Possibility Storm like right after the other. Like it was a crazy game. It just took forever. Like by the end,
at some point, I think there was Possibility Storm and Hive Mind both out.
Yeah, something like that. Like we were just like, please, end this.
But no one could.
But no one
no one could.
But they were looking at me. I'm like, hey man, I'm Una. I don't attack things. I have to wait for things to just kind of work in my hand, man. And this is not.
I attack things when I have, enough fairies to kill someone.
On the rare occasion where someone allows me to get 90 fairies, like when that happens, sure, I attack people. But usually they don't let it get that bad.
Yeah.
They usually stop it. He's like, how many fairies do you have? We should probably fix that, guys. That shouldn't be there.
Wrath of God. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Or Supreme Verdict, because you'll just counter Wrath.
I mean, maybe. Maybe.
If it doesn't work in his favor.
Woo. Okay. Other things that other utilities that decks need.
Did we?
I mean,
did you guys talk about draw options for green while I was getting my paper towels?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we talked about how Red's has not very good ones.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
That's part of why
Red relies on. That's why Red's kind of becoming the artifact color in design philosophy now instead of blue, because that way they can print stuff for everyone, and then Red can go, "Oh, I have this now, I guess."
Right. Which is good because Red didn't have it. It's allowing Red to become a more viable than it was, because it used to be really rough for Red out there.
At least in Commander. I mean, it's always been solid.
Red Deck wins.
Red Deck Wins has been the deck since Shiv and Dragon, so forever. But yeah. Pump my flying dude, hit you in the face.
Right.
Which, speaking of Shiv and Dragon, don't you just love the Shiv and Dragon in our logo? the way Mike designed the logo is it's supposed to be similar-ish to Jurassic Park, which is
I kind of see that.
Yeah.
One sec.
Oh my. Well then.
So yay! Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. So we saw Jurassic World the other day. So
Yes.
good movie.
Really good movie.
John, is your deck ready?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't put the lands in yet, but I guess it doesn't really matter.
Feel free to do that. We can keep talking about utility.
Yeah. Any of the commands?
Yeah. Lots of the Lorwyn commands. Yeah. We have to specify that now, Nick, because in the new set there's 5 more
commands.
Which those are actually turning out to all be really good.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, at least
all of them play now.
I mean, at least in Commander, and then. Some of them, Atarka's command, Colligan's command, and Dramoka's command are seeing play in lots of play in Standard and Modern. Because they're just good, and they're cheap. Whereas the other ones at 4 and 5 drops are less cheap.
Less cheap.
But easy to do in Commander. So.
Yeah. Yeah. You get tons of value with them in Commander.
Yep.
A card I've always liked that's utility, or at least I consider it utility, and it's one of my favorite cards, which is weird because I only own one of them, but Scepter of Dominance. It's an artifact. I think it's from the Elara block, but it's 1 and 2 white, and it's pay 1 white, tap target permanent. And there's just so much you can get out of that. You're like, your opponent's going to swing at you with your commander. You're like, boom, tap it. They're going to activate some ability during your turn. Do it at the end, tap their creature at the end of your opponent's turn. You're up against a blue deck, and you're like, oh, crap. My opponent has 2 islands untapped. During your upkeep, just be like, oh, I tap one of your islands. You have 1 island. play that counter spell now.
So yeah, stuff that manipulates things to go against the original game plan is good.
Right? For sure. For sure.
And I do agree that I like this card, but for the record, we are not saying that every white deck should be playing Scepter of Dominance.
No, I just love the card.
Oh my. What do you mean, Alex?
I mean exactly what I said and nothing more, nothing less.
Okay. Yeah. Scepter of Dominance. Super duper main point is.
Oh! I mean, continue. Sorry.
No. Go on.
I mean, I was going to move on to another point.
Go, move, do it. I was literally just
Soul Ring.
Soul Ring, yes. Why didn't we not talk about Soul Ring?
Probably every deck should have Soul Ring. And I mean every deck. Every commander, yes. Every commander deck should probably have Soul Ring.
If you want to be
any format it's not banned in. Because who doesn't want 2 extra mana all the time?
Well, I mean, it's less good. It doesn't really see play in Legacy because that's kind of all it does. It doesn't fill any other role of it. So like late game, it's like a super duper dead card, and then like you basically give up a turn of accomplishing meaningful things for accomplishing hopefully more meaningful things later. But in Legacy, the turn of accomplishing, I mean, force of will is another issue in Legacy.
Yeah.
It's, ramp into my big dude. Okay, force it. Wasted my whole game, my dudes. Yay!
Right. Exactly.
You look confused, John. Is it not letting you?
No, I'm not. I got it. I figured out what it was, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
John yet again forgot to put his deck on tapped out, but we're remedying the situation this time.
Yes, I got it. I will have it for you in a moment, faithful viewers. I appreciate you dealing with my...
Don't worry, just do it. Don't think.
Do you want me to say words to finish that sentence? Because I can come up with words.
I'm sure you can, Alex. Why don't you go ahead and just, say them?
Incompetence.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
He's not incompetent. He's getting an English degree, right?
Well, some would argue about that.
Some would argue that you're not getting an English degree?
No, I mean, some would argue about whether or not that makes me competent or not.
Oh.
So whatever. In this economy.
In this economy.
Okay. All right. I think we're good.
All right. So, link it to me in the Skype chat.
All right. Give me 1 sec.
I apologize. Oh.
Hold on. Now it's B and Miley. Okay.
All right. That's okay.
B and Miley.
Okay. One more time.
Well, while he figures that out, I just saw another card in this deck that I have with me that we should probably talk about. Mono blue decks, or blue X, or maybe even blue XX decks, should probably all play Capsize.
Oh, Capsize is fantastic. I love bounce cards that let you do permanents. Because there's just that utility in bouncing any permanent, like Boomerang,
Do you have them?
Yep,
do you have
here. It's here.
Okay. Alrighty then. So, I know a couple of you have messaged me about this already. So, we figured that we'd talk about my Marchesa deck. This is one of my favorite decks, actually. Super happy. I remember when Conspiracy was just coming out, and I was trying to think of a Grixis commander to use, but none of the ones that were out appealed to me. And then they spoiled this card, and I looked at it, and I was like, yes. That was my only thought was, yes. Like, this is it. And super awesome. Also, because when I looked at it, I read it like 3 times to make sure this card was, in fact, as busted as it looked. And it is, in fact, as ridiculous as it looks. For those of you that don't know, Marchesa is a 3/3. She costs 1, blue, red, black. Legendary creature. She's a human wizard. She has Dethrone, which is whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life, or is tied for most life, you put a 1/1 counter on it. And then she has other creatures that control have Dethrone. But the best part is that whenever a creature I control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, I return that card to the battlefield under my control at the beginning of the next end step. And that is insane. Because 1, it works on her. 2, the creature just has to be under my control and die with a 1/1 counter on it, and then it comes back to me. So if I steal your creature and then it dies, it's mine now. Forever. I mean, until it dies without a 1/1 counter. But my deck doesn't make that easy. So I mean, I guess we can go through the list and I can talk about some of the things. I mean, like I have Ashling the Extinguisher, which I liked. Mostly it's in there because I just like that card and I had it and I didn't really have a place to put it. But I felt like putting it in, so I was like, hey, she's cool. And she makes people sacrifice creatures, and that's cool. You know? I have Ashling the Pilgrim because, I mean, she puts counters on herself. And worst case scenarios, I can build her up over the course of the game and blow up everything. And as long as my stuff has counters on it, all my stuff will come back. And that's
another thing to note about Ashling is it only works if it's the third time the ability resolved that turn. So with that deck, it's really easy to build up to 10, 15, 20 counters.
Right.
And then just, alright, we're going to pay 6 mana, blow up everything, and kill a few people in the process.
Exactly. I have Conquering Manticore. I mean, he's a 5/5 flyer for 6, which isn't, I mean, a terrible thing, to be honest. It's not a bad creature. But also, when he comes into play, I gain control of the creature. I get an active treason tacked onto a 5/5 flyer, which isn't bad.
Especially in your deck,
also,
active treasons are
especially
good.
in my deck, because then I can steal your creature and then I can attack you with it and then sacrifice it, or maybe somebody will block it and it'll die. Because the thing about Dethrone is I don't actually have to deal damage; I just have to declare an attack at that person.
So, John.
Yes.
It just occurred to me that in our discussion about utility, we didn't talk about your favorite kind of utility.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
We will.
Cozy's Trickster is in here because it's the body that I can put on turn 1 and it puts counters on itself. And whenever an opponent shuffles his or her library, that's cool. It's a nifty little thing. And especially early turns, people like to play get their fetch lands and stuff out early, so It can build up pretty quickly, actually, and become just a viable, solid attacker in itself. The Crimson Mage is in here. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure why. I mean, it gives something haste, which I guess is not awful. But, I mean, I think I have it in here as a placeholder for something better. I don't remember what the other thing is supposed to be, though. So, Crimson Mage. Dax Duplicate is cool, because, I get the copy of creature, and it gets Dethrone. And Dethrone triggers Stack, which is relevant. And the creature gains haste, which is also relevant. So cool things. Desecration Demon. Anybody who's played Standard knows that this card is fun. And it can put counters on itself. And if not, I can attack you and then still put counters on itself. Because Dethrone. Win-win. I have Exava because, I mean, in this deck, I mean, she's basically a 4/4 first strike with haste. And
that doesn't die.
That doesn't die, ever.
It gives all your other stuff haste.
It gives all my other stuff with counters haste. Oh, so this says Falcon Wrath Noble. Totally supposed to be Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Makes more sense.
Yes. For those that don't know, Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. Okay. Is that card. that Nick is
Alex.
Alex is showing.
It's a
Right.
vampire for 2, a black and a red. It has flying. It's a 4/1. It has flying and haste, and you can sacrifice a creature to give it to make it indestructible until end of turn. If the sacrificed creature was a human, put a +1/+1 counter on Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. Which,
So
by the
there's a-
way, sorry, this card is now seeing play in various Jund lists and Modern. It's on the rise. Keep an eye on it.
Oh, okay, I will. But fun fact about that is that Marchesa is a human, so if she has a counter on her, I can totally sack. Like if there's a board wipe, I can totally sack Marchesa to get her trigger on herself. She'll come back after the board wipe, and I don't actually sack my noble because it'll get a counter on it because Marchesa was a human, and it becomes indestructible. So yay!
And it's an
Synergy.
open sack outlet.
It is my favorite type of utility, which Alex mentioned that we forgot to mention, are free sack outlets. They're my favorite thing in this game, and if you have a way to run one, you should run one, because people like this deck like to steal things from you, and the best way to say no to that is to just eat your creature for profit.
Like, so, some colors have way more options than others. Like, black has a ton, red has a fair amount, green has a fair amount. White, not so much, blue, not so much. But every deck has access to Ashnod's Altar, which is just
Fantastic card.
it's a pretty cheap artifact. Sacrifice a creature, get, is it 2 or is it 3 mana?
2 colors.
mana.
Two colors, and it costs 3 mana to cast, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
And then I think there's
so,
another altar that does colored mana.
Altar of the there's Altar
Yeah,
of Dementia, which
that's,
is probably my favorite one, which is sacrifice a creature and target player mills equal to that sacrifice creature's power.
the colored mana one is Phyrexian Altar.
Yeah, there we go.
Phyrexian Altar is a deal more expensive than Ashnod's Altar.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
I'm not. I think off the top of my head, Phyrexian Altar's like $12, $13 maybe.
I think it's up to like 18 now. I think.
I think it might be. I think it might be more than that. It's a fair bit of money.
Yeah. So next card, Flare of the Hatebound.
Flayer the Hatebound. This card is pretty ridiculous in this deck, to be honest, because so you board wipe, and then I sacrifice Flayer to Marchesa or to Falcon Wrath Noble. Dies, triggers Undying, comes back in, hits you for 5 damage. It gets a counter on it. I then sack it, and then everything else to the Noble. Board wipe happens. End of turn, everything comes back. Flayer the Hatebound triggers on all of that. So somebody may or may not die.
Yep. Another reason
And,
that free sack outlets are amazing.
Another reason, yes. Undying. I got my Gray Merchant because, I mean, if things gonna be dying and coming back into play, might as well get some enters the battlefield abilities. And while red, black, and blue don't have aren't the best colors for enters the battlefield triggers, this one's pretty nifty. And anyone who's played Standard in the last 2 years knows that this card is pretty good.
Especially with that Desecration Demon guy.
Especially with that Desecration Demon guy.
There, uncurved.
I got Grenzo, Dungeon Warden. This card's pretty cool. Another card from Conspiracy. He enters with 1/1 counters on him, and then I can use him to put cards from my graveyard, my library in my graveyard. Now, while that's not super fantastic, I mean, in this deck, his ability is, I mean, a little take it or leave it. He enters with counters, and he can be pretty big, which is not something to be ignored. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what's looking through this deck is actually kind of not super full of big beater cards. So this is definitely one of the ones that can, be pretty big.
Yeah, it's a card you have 2 down from here.
Right. I mean, and then I have Grimgrin because again another free sack outlet, and also I feel like I don't know. I guess Grimgrin felt a little bit on theme to me. I tried to make this deck have a sort of a theme to it, but I'll discuss that I guess later at some point.
We can discuss it now. If you you mean today? Later?
Yeah. Yeah.
Following.
Grimgrin. Well, I mean, I guess it's a theme that is like I don't know. For those of you that don't know the lore, like Marchesa is So conspiracy, the High City. The short version of this is her family was noble. She was going to be a member of the council, except they didn't. They chose her brothers instead because they were men. And so she said, screw you guys, and disappeared for years, and then started gaining power. And then all of a sudden, she showed up out of nowhere, and she had all kinds of influence and power and had ties to, like, the resistance movement and everything. Because she decided, well, if you guys are going to be that way, I'm just going to, you know, destroy you all. And she's smarter than
them.
And she's smarter than all of them. So that's what she does. And so I figured, like, I tried to choose things. I'm like, oh, well, this would work. Like, it's hard because, I mean, like, you thought, like, well, what would be part of, like, the resistance movement? But, I mean, like, Grenzel is also part of the resistance. And they're not, I mean, they have, like, ogres and stuff. So I figured that, like, she wouldn't have any scruples about using a stitched together Frankenstein zombie warrior to achieve her end goals. Especially since, I mean, the king she has to murder is technically an undead ghost spirit, so, you know, why not zombies? Hamlet back Goliath. Oh, yes.
No, you're good. Sorry. Continue.
So, Hamlet back Goliath is in here because, again, it gets counters on it really quickly, and it's a beater. It's real hard.
Especially in Commander.
And the thing about Hamletback Goliath is that, you know, the same idea. You can actually with
Flare the Hatebound.
Flare the Hatebound. You can order those triggers so that he gets bigger and then he deals like
exactly
40 damage.
it's pretty great. I have Jeering Instigator, one of the few cards in here from the cons block, which is super awesome. Because I mean, again, it's a body that I can throw out there if need be. That also, I mean, it morphs and I get another threaten off of it, which is nice because I mean I can play it early game and then just kind of leave it there until I need it, and then just flip it up, you know. I have Lazov in here. So I think like when I initially built this, I had kind of a small mill theme going in it. And I think he's sort of a remnant of that a little bit. But I mean, he still does work. I mean, he's a 3/3 with hexproof, and then like, whenever someone else is, if something dies, he can become that. And I mean, it's a solid thing because in Commander, things like to die. Things like to die a lot.
Another thing worth pointing out, I think, about Lazov in your deck is that he essentially becomes a better version of their deck. Not just because he gains hexproof, but you know he has Dethrone, and he's difficult to kill in addition to the hexproof.
Exactly. And I mean, as long as he's a counter on him, he can come back. So like if I steal one of your creatures, like your Kakusho, maybe for example, that gets milled, I can sacrifice him to Grimgrin to make Grimgrin bigger, and then he comes back, and then I can copy something else of yours again. So always good. I have Marchesa's Infiltrator. I mean, it's a 1/1 with Dethrone, but again, Dethrone trigger stack, so if they're both in play, he gets 2 1/1 counters. And when he deals damage to a player, get a draw card.
And it's on theme.
It's on theme. I have Marchesa Smuggler. Now, this card I like because of his second ability, which is that target creature I control gains haste and can be blocked, which is nice, not to be overlooked.
I love the flavor text on this card. Watch your head and your back.
Right. Exactly. Which is, again, not to be considered when you remember I have Ashling, which is when it deals combat damage to a player, they sacrifice the creature. So, you know, being able to cast her, and then if I have them like late game, make her give her haste and unblockable, or even just unblockable, you know, is not irrelevant. Then I have the card that might be the most insane thing in this deck, though. So
story time. Before Conspiracy came out, and with it Marchesa, Marchesa Unhallowed was like $3, and then within a month it jumped up to like $10 because of Marchesa, and now it's sitting at somewhere around $13 or so.
Yeah, like money, a little bit.
And John will tell you why.
Yeah. So fun thing here. So intimidating when a human does damage is fine, but other non-human creatures that control get +1/+1 and have Undying. So say for example, you kill I don't know, a Grey Merchant. Grey Merchant, for example. One, it dies. It has Undying, so it dies. Even if it doesn't have a counter on it, it comes back. Boom. And it comes back immediately. Trigger. It dies. Then, if
For
I have
at
a sack,
least 5.
for at least 5, and then if I have a sack outlet, I can sack it. It has a count because of Undying. It has a counter on it now. Delayed trigger on Marchesa. It comes back at the end of turn and hits again for at least 5. Only now it doesn't have a counter on it anymore, so now I can sack it, and then Undying. And then it comes back. So every turn, I can drain everyone for 10 damage. And that's pretty good.
And if you get the +1/+1 counter on him, then you know you're really screwed. Cause
yeah. If I put a 1/1 counter on Marchesa, yeah. Woo! I have Mogus, God of Slaughter, in here because I feel like it was on theme a little bit. And also, I mean, again, he makes people sacrifice creatures or take damage. But again, also as far as beaters go, he's a 7/5. That's indestructible. But I can also, if he attacks, I can put a counter on it, so that even if you find a way to kill him, he might actually come back, which makes me happy. I don't know how.
Another utility thing is dealing with things that are designed to be impossible to deal with. Like you can turn to frog, creature loses all abilities 1/1, or there's other things that do it to entire boards. Black has actually a lot of this, and so does blue. But
right, yes, sudden spoiling or polymorphous jest, turn to frog 2.0 rather. Both of those would make him die, except unless he has a 1/1 counter on him. Yay. Now I got one of my favorite cards in here. I have Necroplasm. Now this card, this 55-cent rare from Ravnica. At the beginning, I put a 1/1 counter on it, and then at the end of a turn, I destroy each creature with converted mana cost equal to the number of 1/1 counters on Necroplasm. And it has Dredge too, which is whatever. But the thing is, normally, Necroplasm goes 1, 2, 3, and then it dies also. But between Marchesa and a couple other cards in here, and being able to attack with Dethrone, I can manipulate the counters on it relatively easily. So I can kill things that I want to kill, and I can keep things alive that I want to keep alive. It's a pretty nifty way. And plus,
notably itself.
A fun card also is Necrotal, a card that I think should be played a lot more in Commander, to be honest. It's just really good. But again, if it's dying and coming back, basically getting a free Doomblade. On a creature, it's a 2/1 with First Strike, which if it gets a couple counters on it, isn't an irrelevant thing either. First Strike wins combats.
It does.
Ogre Battle Driver is another fun card. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield and I control that creature, gets +2/+0 and gains haste. So not only does that again help buff power off of Flare the Hatebound, but all of my creatures when they die, when they come back in, immediate haste, which again is cool with Marchesa because of Undying. I got Penavis, and just shenanigans with counters. Make all the flying dudes eat it. Yay, counters. Phyrexian Ghoul because it's a free sack outlet. Scuttling Doom Engine because damage. Sphinx and Magosai because who doesn't like to draw cards and keep the creature from dying? Splatter Thug because again he's basically just a 3/3 with First Strike that doesn't die. This is one of my favorite one is Sting Magi, which is awesome. Yeah, they come into play with 2 1/1 counters on it, but I can pay 4 and remove a 1/1 counter from it to destroy a target artifact or land. And that's another thing that we didn't talk about, is having some land destruction in Commander is relevant. Because sometimes you need to get rid of an annoying land.
The Cabal Coffers that we mentioned.
Yeah.
Or that Urborg. Or that Nykthos. Some lands
Mystifying Maze.
Sarah's Sanctum. Some lands just need to go away. You know, because no one's ever played a Sarah Sanctum to not make
Let's
ridiculous
escalate
amount
this
of
a little bit. Tabernacle at the Pendrell Vale.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone there is that person. Torian Mauler is in here because he gets counters on it really fast because people do stuff. Thraxamundar is really fun in this deck. Because he's a beater. Thrumming Bird is fun because proliferate. Yay. Treasonous Ogre. Now, Treasonous Ogre is relevant because not only does it have Dethrone, but I can pay 3 life to add red to my mana pool. So, one, being able to pay 3 life, it
Keeps you off the throne.
keeps me off the throne, is one. And two, I can use it to get an influx of mana to do whatever. Like for Stingmogi, for example, I can, get some red mana. Or, I mean, if I need colorless, I can use it for the Sphinx's trigger. Or I can use it to... Pentavis. Grimgrin. I mean, Grenzo. Sorry, not Grimgrin. I got Triskelion because, well, I mean, Triskelion. Alex, are you chewing on your microphone thing right now?
An earbud. It's a unicorn.
Oh my.
Well, obviously.
Vein Drinker is in here because it's just a fun little techie piece of card. Plus, it's a black card that fights. Like,
Yeah.
that made me happy. It's a black card. It's a black-red card with a fight mechanic, and that's awesome. And then I got Wormcoil Engine because, hey, again, getting that value.
So that was a lot of creatures.
That was a lot of creatures.
But
But
it makes
again,
sense.
36 creatures. But again, in this deck, I want creatures. I'll try to go through the rest of these pretty quickly. I got Domineering Will in here. This is one of my favorite cards from the new Commander set because it's just nifty. I just like being able to... Yes?
I noticed a land that probably is a mistake. You don't have Novigen, Heart of Progress in that deck.
I do not. I don't know what that is. That shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Doesn't
I don't know how
even
that
fit command
happened.
colors.
I don't know how that works, but that shouldn't be in there. But Domineering Will is fun. I just like being able to look at somebody and say, "Let me borrow those for a second. I promise I'll give it back." I'll give those right back.
And it's
awesome.
target players, so you can give them to other people.
I know, exactly. So if I want to help a friend out, because this deck is super political, because like most of my cards aren't particularly just crazy strong on their own. Fuel for the Cause is fun. It's the only counterspell I have in here, but it has Proliferate tacked onto it. So I mean, it offers some utility in that regard. And I mean, people don't expect it. Rakdos Charm is nice because again, a little bit of graveyard hate. It allows me to some artifact destruction, and it kills the token player.
It just straight up kills them.
Yeah. Rand Flesh is one of my favorite spells because destroy target non-spirit creature. In almost all cases, this is basically just a terminate. Like 90% of the time, this is just a terminate, which is nice.
Right.
Smelt, destroy an artifact, pretty straightforward. Spite Network is one of my favorite cards, and also one that doesn't get played a lot, but I love it because I get to look at any face-down creatures he controls, which is relevant again.
Yay.
Thank you, Cons of Tarkir. Sudden Death is awesome because of that split second, and being able to give something -4 is also not an irrelevant thing. Of course, I got the aforementioned Terminate. I got Volt Charge, which again, I mean, it's basically Lightning Bolt, but it's got that Proliferate tacked on. And then Word of Seizing, another one of my favorite cards because of that split second. It's awesome.
It's like 7 of your favorite cards in this deck.
I know. I put a lot of fun cards in here.
And then lands. Yay.
Lands are pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't have anything too crazy.
You didn't have any utility lands in there. I'm just trying to figure out what the hell this Novigen is supposed to be.
I'm pretty sure. I think it's actually just supposed to be another island.
Oh, okay.
I think, right?
Because all your cards add up to the correct amount of cards.
I feel
I
like it
think
had
it
to
is-
have been a name you were trying to type in, and it just was like
I don't know what it was.
Nova
I
Hint.
can't think about what it was. It's not a Steam Vents. Maybe. Oh no, I do have a Steam Vents in here. That's probably what it is. I don't know how it got Nova.
I don't know how I got Novagin Heart of Progress since it doesn't let you put in incorrect names.
Yeah. But I have Elixir of Immortality in here, and I have Rakdos Signet. One of the few decks I actually run a Mana Rock in, but I figured it's red, blue, black. It doesn't have any green, so mana fixing is important. Sorceries, I got Active Treason, which is awesome. I mean, because I steal stuff. I got the best ultimatum. The best ultimatum.
Yep.
Cool.
I got Dreadbore, which is just cool.
It kills things.
Kills planeswalkers.
Yes, it does.
I
So
have,
does
I
the
have,
next
in,
card.
I have Ingaruk's Wake, which makes me happy. Board wipe.
Board wipe. For,
That
you
keeps his stuff
9.
alive. Keeps
Huh?
all your stuff alive, and it makes me cry.
It does.
Yeah.
Super Friends. Life's Finale, which doesn't make Alice cry.
Yeah.
But also it's fun. Mob Rule, one of my favorite cards in this deck, and I love it. I feel like at some point I should I guess arguably I should swap it for Insurrection because Insurrection is just strictly better. But I think I'm just gonna find a way to just keep it and Insurrection in here, just because both of them I feel are on theme.
You might be able to cut, what was it called? You might be able to cut Crimson Mage.
Yeah, I could probably cut the Crimson Mage for Insurrection, to be honest. And then Slave of Bolus. Take your thing, sacrifice it. And then Traitorous Blood. Take your thing, give it trample and haste.
Bash you
Fun
in the
times.
face, sacrifice
Bash
it.
you in the
Keep
face,
it
sacrifice
forever.
it. And then because I'm sacrificing everything, Dictate of Erebos. Because yes, I'm gonna be that guy. I got my Grave Betrayal because this card is just cool. And hey, it
Another
kills
way
your
to gain
things,
control of everyone's things.
and it comes in with a counter already on it. So yay. Underworld Connections, another way to keep me off the throne. And then of course the MVP of this deck, Unspeakable Symbol. Because
It's normally unspeakably bad. But
I have won games solely off the back of this card. Solely off the back of this card. There is literally a game where I paid myself down to 1 life using this card. I took no other damage that game. I took 1 damage except for this card. And I had 1 life. But I won because of this card. And that made me happy. And then Warstorm Surge because, things die and come back. And also, Flay of the Haybound is a thing that exists. But yeah, that's my deck. That took, a while. But yes.
yeah. So, yeah.
I have fun with it. And I mean, if any of you guys have any suggestions on it, I have it on Tapped Out.
I'll be putting the link to this deck in on the YouTube description and all the other places that this winds up getting posted. So people can look at the deck there and they can comment on
Send
it.
him some suggestions, whatnot.
Yes. But yeah, that was
That's the deck.
So,
So
I
deck.
don't think I've yet to have the pleasure of playing against it though. 'Cause I haven't played against you in a while.
it's a fun deck to play against. I mean, but I'm weird and I like basically getting my teeth kicked in Magic, I guess.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think it's definitely possibly the most technically difficult deck I play. Because
There's a lot
as I
of
said,
triggers and layering them and
right, and there's nothing really in this deck that's on its own. It's just okay, well I can play this and I'm going to win now.
right.
Most of this deck, it's all synergy based. This deck is pure synergy, and like Animar is really easy because almost every individual card in that deck is one that you're just like, oh, okay, well,
I should play this right now.
Yeah, like this can beat people. This deck is a lot more technical than that.
Has finesse.
Yes.
So next week. Oh, wait, one thing I forgot I wanted to mention before we were done. Obviously, it's been quite a while since our last episode, which was 2 weeks ago because we skipped the last week. But in that time, Jameson, who is not here, played in Star City, Columbus, and he bombed in the Invitational. But then he went and played in the Modern Open, where he took 10th place. He beat Reed Duke, who took 12th. Jameson was playing, I think he was playing Grixis Delver, or Grixis Twin, Grixis something. But, yeah, so he did awesome. It was a huge event, and he took 10th. He was very happy.
That's awesome. Good job, Jameson.
If you're watching this.
Yay! Hooray!
And the reason he's not here, and we have Nick, is Jameson's currently in Virginia, which I believe he will... I don't know when he comes back, but he definitely won't be back next week, so we'll probably just have Nick again. But, which, Nick...
Works for me.
I forgot to talk to you guys about this before going live, but your idea about all of us designing a deck for some same commander thing?
Yes.
That's what we're going to do next week, so why don't you explain how that works?
Okay, so I was just thinking, I'm not sure how you guys wanted to pick, but basically I was thinking we pick one commander, and then all of us hosts here, we build our deck around it, our dream deck with all the cards that we think work perfectly for it. And then we would come back the next week and we would have each our own deck list, and then we would talk about why we picked one card over the other, or, what we tried to do with our deck, as opposed to, Alex or John might go one way, I might go a different way, depending on the cards I choose. And so we can just talk about the different choices we made when building it.
So I have 3 different thoughts about how we could choose which deck to make. And one of them is pick a theme, and we can build any deck we want around that theme. The other one is go to magiccards.info and hit random until we hit a legendary creature, which I actually just did, and I hit Rakdos, Lord of Riots.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
And then the third one is we just come up with something that we all already have some ideas for that we kind of want to build, and then just agree on something.
Sounds like John's okay with doing Rakdos.
I'm good with doing Rakdos.
I wasn't sure how you guys wanted to do it, so I like the whole we all do the same commander idea, just because then that pulls... We're going to have similar cards, and then we can talk why we didn't choose a card that, like, you did, instead of all having, like, a theme and having a different commander.
Okay.
And I think Rakdos would work pretty well. I was going to say, like, obviously we don't want to do, like, a 5-color, because the decks are just going to be, like, whatever. A 2-color works pretty good, and so does a 3-color, so... do you guys want to do Rakdos, or do you want to random around?
I just randomed to hit Rakdos. I just didn't show it on the stream, but I promise it was random.
Okay, I'm good with Rakdos if you are.
Alright.
Okay.
So next
week, Rakdos, Lord of Riots. 3 iterations of the same deck.
I'm calling it now. Next week's episode title: Battle Royale.
Only one of us survives.
Is it really a battle? I mean, like with Rakdos, it's more like a sacrificial party.
We'll call it the Imaginarium of Dr. Rakdos. Get it? Because there's like 4 of them in that movie, and then there's 3 different. Yeah.
There's 4
jokes about me.
Yeah, there's 4 because it's Heath Ledger and Johnny Depp and
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell and Colin. I feel like we got the name screwed up.
No, it's the Irish one. No.
Is this Farrell?
It's Farrell. Yes.
Okay.
It's not the guy from King. It's not the guy from Kingsman.
All right, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, Colin Farrell and Jude Law.
Yes. Okay.
So.
But okay. Well, I guess that's the end of this episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for watching.
Yes.
See you guys next week.
We'll see you next week.
Everyone have a good week.